Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu claims that Israel is the only country in the Middle East that protects Christians.
Israel, the guardian of Christianity in the Middle East.
Israel, the only country in the Middle East where the Christian community is thriving. Israel is the only country in the Middle East where Christians can practice their faith with full rights and in total freedom.
But the oldest Christian communities in the world would beg to differ. Palestinian Christians trace their roots back nearly 2,000 years. According to the Bible, Mary and Joseph traveled from Nazareth to Bethlehem, where Jesus was born. Today, that journey passes through checkpoints, settlements, and a separation wall.
If things continue at this rate, in 2050 we might not have a Christian presence in the Holy Land.
For Palestinian Christians, their centuries-old presence in the occupied West Bank is under threat as a result of Israeli occupation, land grabs, and settler violence. Before 1948, they made up around 12.5% of the population. Now today, that figure has dropped to just 1 to 2%, and most of that population live in 3 main areas: Bethlehem, Ramallah, and East Jerusalem. In Bethlehem, Christians once made up 85% of the population, and that's now dropped to just 10%. So how did Palestinian Christians go from the living stones of Christianity to struggling to survive? Let's go back to 1948. When the State of Israel was created, more than 750,000 Palestinians were forcibly displaced in what's known as the Nakba, the catastrophe. Entire villages were destroyed and once thriving communities razed. Christian Palestinians were not spared the devastation. Around 90,000 Christians were displaced, and nearly 30 churches were forced to close. Christian villages like that of Iqrit and Kafr Biram in Upper Galilee were occupied and demolished by Israeli forces who left only empty churches and cemeteries behind. And in Jerusalem, the Semiramis Hotel, owned by a Christian Palestinian family, was bombed by the Haganah in January 1948, killing at least 25 Palestinian Christians. After the 1967 war, in which Israel occupied the West Bank, Israeli settlements were illegally built on occupied land. Today, more than 720,000 Israeli settlers live in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, alongside roughly 3 million Palestinians. For many Christian Palestinian communities, the expansion of these settlements, along with land confiscation and movement restrictions, has raised concerns about their long-term survival. So let's take Bethlehem, for example. This map shows the city today, increasingly surrounded by Israeli settlements. In the predominantly Christian town of Beit Sahur, just east of Bethlehem, Israeli settlers, backed by the military, bulldozed the historic Ush al-Ghurab hilltop in November to establish a new illegal settlement outpost. Just to the north is Gilo, a large Israeli settlement built after 1967. It was later illegally annexed by Israel into Jerusalem's municipality. The settlement was part of Beit Jela traditionally, and it's said that the stones that were used to build the Nativity Church were taken from the quarries of that area. To the west of Bethlehem and the town of Beit Jela lie 2 valleys, the Kramizim Valley and El Makhrur. For generations, these areas were cultivated by Palestinian families, many of them Christian. Olive groves, vineyards, and farmlands were passed down through families for centuries. In 2015, Israel constructed a part of the separation barrier through these valleys, placing some farmland on the opposite side of the wall from its owners. But Israeli plans have aimed to connect nearby settlements, including Gilo and Har Gilo, creating a continuous settlement block between Jerusalem and Bethlehem. Palestinian landowners say this expansion threatens to cut them off from their agricultural land. In the Kramizim Valley alone, court documents have shown that at least 58 Christian families faced the loss of land through annexation and barrier routing. In El Makhrur, settlers established an outpost on land claimed by Palestinian families near Beit Jela. MEE journalist Peter Oborn spoke with local human rights lawyer Dalia Kumsia on the impact of these settlements.
Threats are imminent of annexation. On the ground, the situation is deteriorating. The settlers are definitely one tool of ensuring land control and forcible displacement of the Palestinians in the area. The loss of land is not only the loss of livelihoods, it's really it's the destruction of your future presence in your ancestral land as an indigenous person.
The threat to Christian Palestinians and their land is also happening inside Jerusalem's Old City, in the Armenian Quarter, one of the oldest Christian communities in the world. Dating back to the 4th century, this tight-knit community is now under pressure, facing frequent attacks on holy sites and a land deal that could turn a quarter of its land into a luxury hotel. In 2021, an Armenian priest secretly signed a 98-year lease, transferring historic land in the quarter to a newly registered development. Despite the outrage by the Armenian community and the attempt to cancel the agreement, which defies the church bylaws, bulldozers entered the site in November 2023 and began tearing down part of the surrounding walls. Residents responded by setting up barricades and maintaining a round-the-clock presence on the land.
We live in very uncertain times, so they can literally come at any time and attack us. 20, 30 armed thugs came here with electric chainsaws, with batons, with full aggression, trying to intimidate us, to kick us off our land. The police, even though the police station is 5 minutes away from here, they took a lot of time to respond, and when they came, they were very aggressive with us and even arrested some of our boys over here for merely defending their land.
Armenian leaders fear that losing the site would significantly reduce their presence inside the Old City, further shrinking a Christian community that has existed inside Jerusalem for more than 1,500 years.
This land is 11,500 square meters. It's 25% of the quarter. If we lose it, it's only a matter of a generation or two before the Armenian presence disappears incrementally.
Palestinian Christians not only face a loss of land, but also face restrictions on worship imposed by Israeli authorities. Bethlehem and Jerusalem are two pillars of Christianity, the Nativity and the Resurrection. And for centuries, Christians walked between them freely. Today, access to Jerusalem and Bethlehem for major holidays like Easter and Christmas is not so easy. Permits are limited, often denied, and typically restricted by age.
The fact that I need a permit from the Israeli military as an indigenous Christian just to go to pray in Jerusalem, and I only get it as a clergy, but my congregations don't get it, it's unthinkable.
During the Holy Week, the lead up to Easter, Israeli police set up barricades around Jerusalem's Old City. Church leaders say worshippers are sometimes prevented from entering Christianity's holiest site, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Israeli authorities impose strict restrictions on who can go inside the church. It can hold up to 10,000 worshippers, but only 2,000 people are allowed.
People who live inside of East Jerusalem, the Old City, the Christian community who live there, are prevented from going to the church, are beaten when they try to go beyond the blockades.
Harassment against Christian communities has also increased. The Religious Freedom Data Center documented at least 201 incidents of violence against Christians between January 2024 and September 2025. These included spitting, verbal abuse, vandalism, and physical assaults targeting clergy or those visibly Christian. Christian leaders say this hostility isn't new, but has been normalized by rhetoric from Israel's far-right government, creating what they describe as a climate where attacks can be justified or tolerated. Israel's National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir dismissed a viral video of Israelis spitting on Christian clergy as an old Jewish tradition.
קודם כל יש מנהג יהודי קדום, שכשעוברים ליד מנזר או ליד כומר יורקים. אפשר להסכים או לא להסכים, אבל כאשר יורקים לצד, אני לא חושב שזה מבטא.
Church leaders say the hostility isn't just political rhetoric. They point to growing legal and financial pressure from Israeli authorities on Christian institutions in Jerusalem, including property disputes and new taxation measures on church-owned land that has been exempt for centuries. In August 2025, bank accounts belonging to the Greek Orthodox Patriarch were frozen during legal proceedings, affecting church-run schools and services. Israel's treatment of Christian Palestinians in the West Bank and the genocide in Gaza, which has pushed its tiny Christian community close to extinction, has left many Palestinians feeling abandoned by the international Christian community. And that's particularly the US evangelicals, who declare their unwavering support for Israel.
Now is our time to express our appreciation to the Jewish people and to the state of Israel, because the day is going to come when you will be rewarded in heaven for doing exactly that. Israel needs our voice. The Jewish people need our help.
So Christian Zionism is an ideology that bases its political support for Israel on the belief that the modern state of Israel is tied to biblical prophecy and that the second coming of Christ is prophetically linked with Israel.
The church that blesses Israel, God will bless, and those who do not bless Israel or the Jewish people do not nearly as prosper as those who do.
There are approximately 30 million Christian Zionists in the US. Over the past few decades, they've contributed millions of dollars to new Israeli settlements. Organizations such as HaYovel have been bringing in hundreds of American Christian volunteers to work in Israeli settlement agricultural projects, especially during Israel's war in Gaza, when Jewish Israelis were called for military duty. Christian Zionists are deeply embedded in US political life, with major donors in the Republican Party. Several members of President Trump's cabinet have also been closely aligned with Christian Zionist beliefs, including the US ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, a Christian evangelical who recently said that Israel has the God-given right to much of the Middle East.
You have said it 3 times that God gave this land to this people. What land are you talking about? Because I just read Genesis 15, as I have many times. And that land, I think it says, from the Nile to the Euphrates, which is, once again, basically the entire Middle East. So God gave that land to his people, the Jews, or he didn't. You're saying he did. What does that mean? Does Israel have the right to that land?
It would be fine if they took it all.
Palestinian Christians have long warned that Christian Zionism poses a threat to their community. They say it reinforces Israel's occupation, which includes land confiscation, settlement expansion, and the pressure on church property.
To many Christians around the world, the test of a good Christian or a bad Christian is whether you support Israel. It's something we even see in Congress members. You must bless Israel.
For Palestinian Christians, the question isn't whether Christianity is protected in the Holy Land, but whether its oldest population will be able to remain.